Welcome everyone. This is the final webinar in the 2024 series of MDC Connects. I'm Sarah Brockbank. I'm a strategy leader at Medicines Discovery Catapult, and I'm hosting the session today with David Pennington, my colleague, also from MDC. So each year, Medicines Discovery Catapult aims to connect the community by running a short series of weekly webinars. And experts from MDC are joined by experts from across the community to deliver the sessions. We've had a really super interesting year this time, where in previous years we've tended to concentrate on drug discovery from a scientific perspective. This time we've really looked at the business and the commercial angles, and we started out the series looking at the challenges in this current economic climate. We then went on to look at how people can secure funds, and we were joined by funders and VCs. We were then joined by CROs and science parks to talk about how you could access skills and capabilities and infrastructure. And then last week, we were talking about protecting IP, how to do this on a limited budget, how to prepare yourself for the rigors of due diligence. And this week, we're going to be right down to the crunch now and thinking about commercializing your innovation. And I'd like to welcome three speakers. So we're joined by Clare Terlouw, our head of LifeArc Ventures. And Claire's going to take us through the various different options for commercialization. Then we're going to be joined by Lilian Alcaraz, who's VP of Early Innovation Partnering at J&J Innovation. And he's going to tell us what Pharma are looking for. And then finally, we get to hear from an SME who's been there and done that. This is Rob Grundy, who's CEO of Intelligent OMICS, who's going to tell us how to work with Pharma and commercialize IP. We will take questions at the end of each presentation. So please, can you put your questions at any time through their talks into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And that's not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box. And I will ask those questions at the end of each talk. So please have them ready. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Clare to kick off today's webinar.
So yeah, I'm head of LifeArc Ventures. I'm sure many of you have heard of LifeArc. It's a very large UK medical charity. The charity has over £1.3 billion in financial assets, and I run all of the financial investing within LifeArc, and that is because LifeArc needs to have a sustainability strategy in order to survive in the longer term. So we run two different investment strategies in life sciences. The first is that we run our own venture fund, and the second is we run a fund-to-fund strategy, which means we invest as a limited partner in leading global life sciences funds around the world. So effectively, we invest in other venture firms. But on the venture side, we invest in a lot of very early stage companies, and those companies have quite often are looking at different types of transactions. So that's what I'm here to talk about. And before I go into that, just very briefly, these are the kinds of companies in our portfolio: health tech and biotech. And so we do see quite a lot across the board in different types of transaction structures and mechanics. So I've been asked to talk about commercialization. I think that the obvious point to make is that it's just, in order to get something, an asset, to a point where it can be commercialized, you need to be able to fund it to get to that point. So as you all know, in biotech in particular, there's very established stages of development, and therefore there's a sort of standard, a pattern recognition to how those companies and those assets are being financed. So typically we see a lot of friends and family, seed stage financings. We like to come in at seed stage alongside other investors. And then Series A is really where you see quite strong institutional and venture capital shareholders. And what you want to be able to do is finance that company to deliver a data package that is enough to transact on. And that transaction could be a number of different things, but your ability to transact in any case is fully dependent on the progress of your scientific data. And so I'm going to talk about what happens when you get to that point. So whether you get to that point, whether the deliverables for that data set come out of your seed financing or your Series A financing, you have funded the business to get to a point where it has promising data. What do you do then? What are your options? Now, clearly, this slide is a bit misleading in that, obviously you don't want to get to that point and then decide what you want to do. You want to have done that work and that thinking beforehand. But in general, it's never too early to start thinking about the potential value that you have. So when you're raising money, you need to be able to indicate what returns on investment can be for venture investors, for example, but you need to know what your asset could be worth. And that means constantly monitoring the commercial landscape so that you understand the change in that landscape. So it could be whether there's been other high profile successes or failures in that particular therapeutic area. Has there been any regulatory changes, legal changes, other changes that could impact the commercialization of your asset? Just constantly monitoring the landscape and being in touch with people who are active there and have a very fresh view on what your asset could be worth. Secondly, I think this is sometimes underestimated. What do you as a founder, you as a management team want to do? Some people are very clear that actually they want to build a big company. They want to be able to run trials. And others don't want to do that. They want to be a founder. They want to take the science to a particular stage of development, and then they want to pass it on to another company to run the trials, for example. So being really clear about what you want, whether you have the skills in-house to do what you want to do. If you don't, what kind of people do you need to add? How much money are you going to need to fund that plan? Who's going to fund the plan? And then really, really having a clear view on who the key pharma, I'm talking about biotech specifically here, who the key pharma players are in the area that you're working in, and what do they think about your data? What do they think about your thesis? Have you spoken to them? How, if not, how can you get to them? And I know that Lilian will be talking about how you can engage with pharma. And then another point that I think sometimes is not dealt with early enough is to really talk to your shareholders about what they want. The shareholders have funded the business, shareholders own the company, and sometimes there can be a disconnect between different shareholders about ultimately what they want out of their investment and what they want the company to do. So in venture funding, I know you had a session with some VCs earlier in this program, so no doubt they've covered these points, but you should always be thinking about your cash runway. So any other deal you want to do, so whether it's a licensing deal or M&A, or all of this relies on your company being a going concern. So you cannot run out of cash while you're trying to execute any type of transaction. So you will always need to be thinking about funding. And that means you need to have a super clear plan about what the next steps are for your R&D program. You need to have that broken down into milestones. Always speaking to new investors, thinking about having people that you know in your network make new introductions to you, trying to encourage your insiders to help support a new fundraising round, and also getting to grips with the sheer time commitment that's going to take. It's a hugely complex and time-consuming process, and it's always going to be there as an issue in terms of, again, making sure you don't run out of money either which way. Even if this is the only option that you're looking at, in that the shareholders want to grow the business and bring in new investors, it is going to take time. Secondly, I'm not going to say too much about licensing because Lilian's going to be talking about that, but clearly, if you don't know who could be interested in your asset, your technology, start early, do as much as you can to get to connect with these people, seek out their advice, get their thinking. And I've said here that time is your enemy. Again, I hate to keep banging on about cash, but sometimes, first of all, I don't think you can rush big pharma, in my experience, they will do what they want to do in their timelines. And so every day that passes, you're running more and more into potential issues with your cash flow. So think about that really carefully. And then finally, as an alternative, M&A is always a very viable strategic option for biotech companies. Many companies will run M&A processes and venture raises in parallel. There's a lot of different reasons for this. Obviously, not running out of cash again is a big reason to do that, but sometimes valuation. You can learn a lot from potential bidders about the valuation of the company as of today versus how they may consider valuing it in the future if you were to reach additional milestones in your R&D program. So it's really helpful to think about the strategy for M&A. M&A also takes quite a long time sometimes. It can be quick if it's a competitive process, but sometimes it does take a long time. So being clear at the outset about who you think potential acquirers are, what the rationale for that would be, do some work into their background, their motivation, their strategy, and be prepared. And then I've made the point, in addition, based on some experiences that we've had, is that I would be careful about using M&A advisors. There's a lot of people who are in the ecosystem who can help legitimately really add value to M&A transactions. And there's others who are more transaction management than M&A sourcing and negotiation. So I would say be very careful about the kinds of people that are offering services. Do a lot of diligence on a person that you're considering using, either to support you doing a transaction or to actually seek acquirers for you and run the process. So anyone who's doing this, they should have a deal sheet. They should be able to show you their deal sheet, even if it's some of the financial information is not disclosed, or maybe there is limited information on some deals that they've done. They should be able to show you a deal sheet and give you the confidence that this is not the first time that they've done this particular type of work. And I would also reach out to investors and people that may have worked with them in the past and get firsthand reference checks and see what they have to say about what it was like to work with them. And then importantly, remember that the board, on behalf of the shareholders, will need to be consulted on any terms that are agreed before hiring an M&A advisor. And that is because you do not want to get in a situation where you're about to execute a successful M&A transaction and there's a commission-based payment going to an advisor that shareholders were unaware of, which is reducing financial returns to shareholders. That's a bad situation to be in. And then again, I know I'm a broken record, but watch your cash runway and set a timeline. Again, if you want to be cynical, you would expect people who are doing diligence on your business to also be acutely aware of what your cash runway is. And again, time is not your friend in this circumstance. So our final point is around consensus. And this can be a difficult thing because in biotech in particular, sometimes valuations are a science, but also an art. And so shareholders may have different views on the value of the shares that they hold. In addition to that, the management, if they are founder shareholders who are also management, may have different views from financial investors on the value at which they would transact. So being really clear about how you're going to get that consensus among the key shareholders and the board is really important. A good, strong chairperson and an independent non-exec is really, really important. So you have to have people around you that can try to be impartial and help get that consensus on the board. And remember that, as a board, you also have a fiduciary duty to protect the interests of minority shareholders and to generate the best value for all shareholders. And this can be difficult, especially if you have very powerful investors who hold a large chunk of the shares. So quite a few things to get your head around. And then again, looking at liquidity analysis, going concern analysis. You might have to get insiders to have a bridge financing agreement on standby if you're running close on cash and you want to get a deal done. So there's quite a few things to think about there. And then my final point is really around preparation for a transaction. There's a few points there. I think that some of them are quite obvious, but I would consider a transaction committee, for example. The only point I really think that's worth pulling out here is that if you have too many people speaking on behalf of the company, and one or more of those people are slightly off message, that can actually be very damaging to a transaction and ultimately harm your negotiation position. So keep that circle of people who are able to speak on the company's behalf during a transaction to a very small number of people. We found that to be very helpful. So I hope that that was useful, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Claire. So I've got a few questions coming in for you, Claire. So one of them is, when trying to value an asset, how can I be sure that the information I am accessing is accurate? Equally, when I'm seeking feedback and to learn a potential customer's needs, what advice would you give in terms of assessing the validity of different opinions?
Okay. When you're trying to value your own asset, yeah, that is really, really, really hard. So first of all, I would say sourcing your own data where you can is the best thing to do, because you can rely on that, on the sources, and then building something from the ground up, which you feel confident you can justify and you can verify. That is the best way to do it. And I don't know if necessarily paying people who you think might have better data is worth the money in some cases, because you alone will really understand, the target, the TPP, and therefore, the patient population that you're going after. You should be able to get your hands on independent data sources to put that together. During a transaction where you're looking at, valuation for transaction purposes, then it might be worth seeking some external support. And there are companies who specialize in valuations for biotech companies. But by and large, we think that a ground up analysis done by the management team is as good as, is a good starting place.
Excellent, thank you. Got another question here. What advice would you give, Claire, to founders about how to choose partners, investors outside of financial factors?
Yeah, so the biggest thing you want is that people truly understand your subsector. So if you have, say you're in gene therapy, you want to look for investors who have invested in gene therapy before, or at least associated categories of life sciences investors. Because, as everybody on this call will know, it's a truly specialist investment area. And if you bring in people who haven't invested in life sciences before, it can be quite challenging. We've definitely found that in the tech bio space, where tech investors are moving further into life sciences, which is a welcome thing. But again, choosing the investors that you think really understand what it's like to actually operate in a highly regulated pharmaceutical industry, I think, is really important. So domain knowledge, I think, is number one. And the second thing, and this might sound flippant, but it's not, you really should try to find people that you like. You're going to spend a lot of time with these people, and they need to be people that, don't sort of drain you when you're around them. And that sounds silly, but like, especially when you make progress and your company's getting to the point where you're facing a transaction, you're really going to spend a lot of time with these people around your boardroom table, and especially if the bigger investors. So find someone who you think, actually, there's someone I wouldn't mind spending some time with.
Perfect, thank you. That's really great. So over to you, Lilian, and Claire. There's some questions still left in the Q&A if you could answer those. Thanks, Lilian. Over to you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lilian Alcaraz. I'm representing the Global External Innovation organization, part of J&J. Together through the IC, J Labs, and JGDC, which is our corporate venture arm, we are sourcing cutting-edge innovation throughout the world, assessing and transacting on them as they fill up into our pipeline. Yeah. And today I've been asked to give you some kind of a taster on what we may be looking for when we are on the road, looking for the next big transformational innovation. I will focus principally on pharma type asset, but this equally applies to anything close to digital technology, platform technology, or even just normal services. Yeah. Let me just see if I can change my slide. Yeah. Let me just. Okay, here is just the typical path that anyone will have to go through in order to end up with a successful licensing deal or any successful collaboration with a partner, a pharma partner. It always starts with an initial contact, which is non-confidential, and this could be anything from a cold call, an introduction via a friend, your own network, or more likely some meeting at a partnering event such as Bio Europe, where we will be as a team next week in Barcelona. Yeah. If the first interaction is successful, we normally go into more confidential and deeper discussion under CDA and DA. Again, if the discussion progresses further, we enter due diligence, which can become very involved. The outcome of that, or maybe in parallel with that, we might decide to take some of the asset in the material transfer agreement to double check independently the claim that has been made. And assuming all that is successful, we might start initiating a non-binding term sheet discussion, which will be basically the blueprint of any further agreement that will be drafted if the outcome of those non-binding term sheet discussions are successful. In terms of the agreement, will just be a translation of the non-binding term sheet terms with additional business terms, and hopefully at some point this will lead to signature. Yeah? Then any successful outcome is basically the intercept of fantastic science, fantastic people, a transformational innovation that's going to make a difference to patients and will ultimately turn into commercial success. Yeah? Then a big part of this process is underpinned by the diligence. Yeah, then you go through all your interaction, and this is really the acid test. Yeah, I have all the claim, everything which has been discussed so far. Can this be independently verified? Yeah, and we normally do that by having direct contact with the relevant specialists within your team. The main aim for us is to identify potential key issues, gaps, which will help us assessing the opportunity further. This is done, as we said, through electronic data rooms those days, where you can control your information as you see fit, and you can make whatever available to us, again, on a need-be basis. Sometimes complemented by on-site visit. I mean, it's really to have those like face-to-face, eye-to-eye discussion to double check the facts, and it's also more appropriate when we do larger transaction involving hardware acquisition or site acquisition. Yeah, we need to visit the actual facilities. Yeah. Then in those database, in those data room, we will expect to see scientific report, preclinical report, every single piece of information linked to the potential asset, including in some instances the raw data that will analyze ourselves independently using our own statistician. For chemistry, if chemistry is involved, we normally ask the partner to keep that information completely ring-fenced from ourselves. And we either assess it with a firewall chemist within the organization, someone who will be completely independent and completely separated by the main from the main R&D effort, or we will use an external chemist who will provide feedback independently without having us seeing the chemistry until very, very late in the process. Yeah, we look at financial, legal document, and of course, importantly, we look at intellectual properties. I mean, it's basically 4 key questions that we go through when we look at any opportunities. The first one is what we're looking at potentially transformational to patient? Yeah. Does it address a specific medical need, and can it make a big difference to patient? Are we the best placed to pursue this innovation? However big any organization is, one can't pursue every single opportunity. Then there is often a focus on strategic area that a specific organization has got a very deep knowledge and expertise in. Then that will be the first test. There's always a capability and capacity issues. Can we commit to this? Is the pipeline enabling us to fit in additional assets? And of course, we never look at any asset in isolation. Then there will be competition, and again, are those ranks between them, either on the same kind of therapy area, but also across the board. Yeah, because again, there's only so many opportunities that a single organization can handle at any one time. Yeah. Is there a clear path to success? Yeah, then that will basically be underpinned by the science, the quality of the science. Most importantly, are there clear key go, no-go decision points, which are near term, where we can de-risk the asset at lower cost. And we also look at the credibility of the team. The credential of the team is very, on the track record is also very important. Yeah. And again, finally, are we making a good team all together? Yeah. Can we reach terms that are acceptable for both parties on kind of win-win basis? Do we see ourselves working together for the next 5+ years? Because this is often what's happened in licensing or collaboration. And also those days, we look also at diversity of the teams, both in terms of leadership and also the board of those companies, and encourage people to be as diverse as possible. Then why do we need what we call transformational innovation? Yeah, it's because on this graph, as you can see, in the past, the level of innovation was required was not as high as it is now. Yeah. Then a lot of Me Too's on compound of that type were progressed onto the market successfully. Those days, there is a need for much higher threshold of innovation from day one, such that with adequate speed, we arrive with still differentiated product when time to reach the market is such that value to patient and value to the organization can be extracted. Yeah. Then this is why the bar is getting harder and harder to hit in order to successfully partner with external organization. Yeah. Then this will translate into what we call target product profile, which is now the intersection between the science, the commercial opportunities, and the market size, the unmet medical need. We also market insight, because the commercial opportunity on its own might actually not be fit for purpose for market based on common practice, on best practice, on KOL views, on health economics, and so on. Yeah. Then we would expect people to already have looked at that. We looked at that ourselves, but hopefully there'll be a match. But this will translate into what the actual value proposition is for the specific project. Yeah. And as with all drug discovery packages, there will be a set of data sets that we will be expecting to see. And again, that will be depending on the level of maturity of the project, but overall, this is quite consistently the same across the board. There will be the unmet medical need, as we discussed, including the market position, the market references, on what's in the pipeline of other organization. Mechanism of action is of course very important, including modality and route of administration. The selectivity of whatever the asset is versus other targets potentially, pharmacokinetics properties, especially leading in the dose-to-man prediction on associated modeling, any safety screening, start from in silico for very early stage program up to in vivo 7 and 14 days type studies. Of course, the in vivo aspect of efficacy in well-established and accepted preclinical disease model. We often see people coming with their own fancy model or model which has not been very validated across the board, and this is causing issues in assessing those opportunities. And well-established PK/PD relationship, target engagement, biomarker strategies are all very important points that we look at. And I think it is important to be clear about what's missing. Yeah, what has been collected, what has not been collected, how are you in process of collecting that information, when can we have access to this information, the IP information, of course. Any clinical safety if the asset has already progressed so far, CMC aspect, any other partnership that may be existing or that may be impeding this transaction, on the financial situation of the current organization. And we like to have that, and I think it's across the board in all pharma. We like to see all that information nicely summarized in an easy, digestible way. And I've just put an example there as a mock-up where you have your criteria which derives from your TTP. Again, those criteria depend on the stage of your program. Are you at hit, lead, NMA? The data corresponding for any reference or control compound that you're comparing against, and then the data for your own compound. Yeah, and you can release whatever level of information you choose from. You could just put colors, the actual figures when it doesn't affect your confidential information, or could just put measure not available, whatever. But this picture is very helpful for us in rapidly assessing the potential quality and potential of any future pharmaceutical asset. And then, most importantly, I guess, to finish, on the top of the science, there is the IP. The IP is, of course, key in making sure there is a commercial success at the end. I mean, the best asset without any IP protection, we will struggle to be very successful, unfortunately. Then we would like to know, and I think we had a nice session last week on this topic. And just quickly, are they filed or issued patent, especially if they are for composition of matter? Is there any know-how that we need to be licensed? The length of exclusivity to be anticipated, that especially once the asset will reach the market, will be key for us in order to put a value on this specific program, whatever FTO or patentability analysis that has been performed. And one thing we will again try to prohibit seeing is, as I said before, any structure or anything that enables us to kind of reverse engineer the data in order to see the structure. We would only want to see any data, algorithm, map structure at the very, very last stage of due diligence on deal making, just to make sure that this key part of your IP has been fully protected. Yeah. Then just in conclusion here, and hope that was helpful. Yeah, the deal is combination of fantastic, innovative science, fantastic people that you have in your team, and hopefully together we can make a difference to patients and turn those innovation into commercial opportunities. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lilian. I'm just pulling the questions up. Right, we've got some quite interesting questions coming in. So we've got one here. Does J&J expect a TPP in place to initiate the discussion?
Yeah, no, but at least some evidence that people have been thinking along those lines on can at least position their asset in the correct way always helps. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the stage. I think it's more as you go closer to the clinic, but even early stage, knowing where your asset, if it's going to be successful, is going to be positioned in the marketplace, and it's always good. Yeah.
I think when we spoke, so I'm going to go off piece a little bit here and ask a question based on something that Claire mentioned last week, that some SMEs are concerned that their TPP narrows their scope and may block them out of some discussions with Pharma where the strategic area is different.
Yeah, I don't think it's always the case. Yeah, and I mean, again, we'll know exactly what kind of target product profile we want for our portfolio. Yeah, it's kind of assessing as easily as possible the match between the asset which is proposed on what we kind of hoping for in our specific areas. Yeah, then I think it's more for realistic expectation on making sure people focuses on the right way of optimizing the asset than anything else. Yeah, because if the TTP is wrong in terms of if people think an IV dose is going to be the next big thing for asthma, for example, yeah, then I think the profile of the compound is going to be completely wrong. When I mean that's an extreme case, but it will not be a fit clearly for anyone in the industry. Then I think thinking about what you're trying to achieve and how it fits in the marketplace is pretty interesting. I think it's probably more important for like advanced therapies as well, where people have made assumptions which are not exactly correct. Yeah.
So I'm just very quickly, because I know we want to get Rob started, but I've got a couple of questions here that I think people would be interested to hear. What are the most common deal breakers and what's their partnering attrition rate?
Then I think just quickly, yeah, I mean, from non-confidential information discussion, I mean, we do thousands of those a year. We probably take a couple of hundreds into due diligence worldwide, and last year we transacted on 50, yeah, licensing type deal. That gives you a bit the type of number we're looking at every year. Yeah. On the deal breaker, yes, I mean, early stage, non-confidential, the deal breaker is often not on strategy. Yeah, then people approaches us, they haven't done their homework, they're trying to sell us something which is completely outside the scope of what we do as an organization. Then it's the science. Yeah, then we go into due diligence and we find out that the nice story we've been told is not quite as rosy as it should be, and based on the information we've been originally provided with. And as we start digging, we find big holes or inaccuracy. I mean, sometimes counterfeit. I mean, those things are extreme examples, but we see that. Yeah. And when the science is completely on the road and everything else is IP often. Like I said, the best compound without a strong IP protection just doesn't cut it those days. Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, especially for large pharma organization. And then the last one will be the unreasonable expectation from partner for one reason or the other. They believe the asset is worth much more than we think it is, and we think we offer the best, a fair deal for the asset, but the partner doesn't accept it or doesn't realize it, or someone just wants to put more money on the table than we do. Okay, that's the last one.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lilian. You've got questions in the Q&A if you would care to go in and type some answers in for folks.
Sure.
Okay, over to Rob. Thanks very much, Rob. Let's get back to you.
Thanks, Sarah. And hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you about commercializing innovation. And I'm going to try and give you a small company perspective on commercializing innovation. And this will apply both, I think, to a degree to the asset-centric innovation and commercialization model that Lilian has been largely referring to, but also a platform and services perspective as well, because that's the major focus of our work. So just very briefly, who are we? So Intelligent Omics are a company based in Nottingham whose focus is on the interrogation of large data sources from OMICS sources, and we apply our proprietary machine learning and AI in order to extract knowledge that identifies the drivers of disease, and from that we can determine candidates for target identification and development into drug targets, but also validate existing hypotheses, anticipate tox liabilities across different organ systems, and also identify biomarkers. So our value proposition is essentially deploying AI to uncover biology, and the business model is technology-driven consensus to determine drivers of disease, downstream drug discovery, and to generate IP through biological knowledge and ultimately licensing. It's really important when you convert an innovation into a commercial endeavor to be driven by the problem. Understanding the problems that are of major concern to your clients, be they pharma or biotech companies, is key to contextualizing your innovation, because you've got to provide value, and real value is in addressing the problems that clients may have. Now, that could be a therapeutic class, so understanding the areas of interest. And if you look across pharma and biotech at the moment, the most popular are new therapeutics, oncology, fibrotic disease, and increasingly neuroscience. Is that a platform need? Are they, as many pharma are at the moment, looking for antibody drug conjugate technologies or solutions for intractable protein-protein interactions? Or is it addressing a bottleneck? This is a more of a service context, but do you have technologies to tackle knotty problems such as patient recruitment or the manufacturing of advanced therapies? And it's really important as you begin your journey to validate those challenges with pharma and biotech companies through customer discovery. Then it's important to articulate your solution in the context of the problem. So if your problem is this, then our solution is that. So in the context of intelligent omics, the problem is that drug development is rife with expense and time-consuming failure. The process of drug discovery really is suboptimal. Can we provide a solution that makes it more optimal? And indeed, we would say that we do, as far as we allow partners to better understand disease biology. And if you understand disease biology, you've got a better chance of selecting causal stable targets that are present across a disease population. So what we've tried to do there is identify the problem and present a solution that provides a kind of sensible context to the problem. Now, quite often, when at the early stages of commercialization, you'll be presented with a conundrum, and that is, what business model do I apply to commercialize my innovation? And I'll give you an example again from our own perspective. So Intelomics has the ability to both provide a service and generate IP. So we can uncover novel biology in a disease. Now we can share that through service, or we can keep it to ourselves, and we can develop an asset around that novel biology in a disease of high unmet medical need. Now, this really presents a long-term value versus short-term viability question. Do we provide a service and generate revenue, or do we raise funds to develop long-term value through IP generation? That is something that you ultimately have to confront and decide what your strategy is. Our solution is to try and do both. We generate near-term revenue through generating a fee for service by making our capability available to biotech and pharma partners. We also, through collaboration, try to generate long-term value through collaborative research. It's also important to understand your route to market. Now, this is really important as you try to access the customer. The hardest yards, really, in commercializing innovation is contact with the customer, gaining that contact, articulating your proposition to the right people within an organization, finding a champion, who has access to budget as well as a need. And that can be achieved in several ways. We can do that through marketing, and it's important that your marketing strategy accommodates the right kind of channels. Now, is that through emails, through exploitation of LinkedIn, through the attendance of conferences, be they scientific or business development partnering conferences like BioEurope, or is it AACR or Society for Neuroscience? Are you looking to connect with the scientists rather than the business development colleagues? That is determined by who the buyer is. So diligent research into who is the budget holder, whose problem is it that you're trying to solve? Is it a strategic business development partner or is it a scientific partner? Be both, in which case you might have to employ a two-pronged approach. Is it business development or is it sales? And then this is an important differentiation. I think it's been blurred over the years. I think the term business development is much abused. When I started my career, business development was very much a relationship building exercise where people like me and people like Lilian and Sarah developed, or Clare rather, developed a relationship so that we understood our mutual needs and could complement them. And that relationship could be built up over a number of years and result in a transaction at some time in the future. Or is it sales? Are you looking to articulate a very specific solution to a problem that could be more transactional, and therefore you need to apportion resources towards that kind of approach, which would be more appropriate. Is it recurring service revenue or is it a one-off deal? Is your business model predicated on finding funds to provide a burn rate to a single episode of commercialization, where you do a big deal with a company that returns on that investment and then has milestones downstream? Or is it a more constant revenue stream through the provision of a service or a license to a technology? If it's a licensing model, then you have to consider what kind of licensing model that you would like to employ. There are many different shades. Quite often this is determined once you start the negotiation. And Lilian can speak to this as well, the shape of the deal and the kind of revenue you might expect often evolves as the conversation continues between the partner who's licensing the asset and the licensor. I'll just give a couple of examples of what we've enjoyed commercial success and what I think the benefit has been to our company. So the first, actually working with Lilian's team, was the collaboration around the employment of our AI-driven drug discovery engine in the area of hematological malignancies with J&J. We announced this in the summer. We sourced that deal through a combination of an email circular to our network, alerting to the capability we had, but also through a platform called InPart, where companies like J&J and others can post a specific need. Now, in this case, we responded to a need for novel therapies in hematological malignancies, and we joined both the contact through the circular and the InPart representative together, and it kind of amplified our impact over that organization, created a champion, and finally got us a deal. And this kind of detail is really important because quite often it can be quite enigmatic or opaque as to what were the deal initiated. And it's really important that we share this kind of intelligence information. What are the benefits? Well, we were integrated into the biology and data science team at J&J, and that's been very nutritious for both sides, I think. We've got exposure to the wider R&D organization at J&J so that they can appreciate what our capabilities are. We were invited to join J-Labs, which I think is a particularly forward-looking initiative that J&J have established, where they bring their innovation community together to share experiences with each other and with other parts of the J&J organization. Become involved in the community, and it also allows for a degree of industry validation. It's very visible and evident that you're part of that community, and I think that speaks to other potential partners as to the value you bring to a peer of theirs. The second example I'll give you is working with Servier, French pharma company, and this has been the area of autoimmune disease, particularly in Sjogren's disease. And here, again, the deal source came from an email circular. So again, providing information and education as to how we might operate and how it might benefit the company. And Servier responded to that positively, and we developed a relationship from there. Again, we were now well integrated into the biology and data science teams, wider exposure to their R&D organization, which subsequently extended our work from autoimmune into the neuroscience therapeutic area. Together, we worked together to refine both our methodology and their internal methodologies. And we're currently in the process of publication submission. So it's very clear how these relationships can develop into something wider. So my final slide is just really about learnings. What have we learned through the process of commercializing innovation? Well, again, you have to speak to a clear problem. Your asset or your service has to be clearly aligned with a need within the customer or client or partner that you're trying to engage with. Quickly identify a champion with a need and a budget, whereby those negotiations become quickly meaningful because there's a way to finalize and complete. Exploit the relationships. If you've gained success in a certain area, make sure that those relationships are strong and sustainable. That way you can extend your commercial partnerships throughout the organization. And finally, and most importantly, if you've established that relationship, then you have to deliver, whether it's a quality asset or it's a quality service that continues to provide value. Delivery is the most important aspect. And Sarah, I'll leave that there. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. We so wanted to finish our Connect series on a bullet point that says deliver. Thank you, Rob. Okay, so questions in at the minute, and just let me look what we've got. So if our team does not possess the expertise to carry out a commercial landscape analysis, where can that expertise be found?
It's a great question, actually. It's hard to improvise that skill. And I think in the UK in particular, we're well furnished with a number of consultants who have been in large mid-sized pharma biotech business development, who now offer their services in a consulting basis. And there are many very high quality operatives in this area. If you don't have those contacts directly, then your network will be connected to them. And if you find the right one, then that can be a very kind of satisfying relationship that helps you understand and gives you an external context on the value of your assets, and ultimately may help introduce to potential customers as well.
And then I've got another one. You mentioned around one-off deals and licensing models. So this question is, within a single company as your own, is it possible to negotiate both one-off deals and also licensing models to different customers and partners, or do you fix on strategy?
In my experience, it's best to be flexible, and depends on the internal strategy and culture of the people you're partnering with. And it also depends on your business strategy. If you're a single asset play and you've invested in the development of a single compound that has a specific serves a specific purpose, then inevitably you're going to be drawing along one single transaction. That transaction, the deal around that transaction will vary from partner to partner, but you're only doing it once. I think if you've got a portfolio of assets, or you've got a service model that relies on a more creative deal, then you can have several different deals based upon several different assets with several different partners. And that will be a result of what the partner needs, what you need, what the culture and strategy is in the partner. And you'll only really find that out once you start negotiating. So you could, if you're an asset-centric IP play and you have 5 different assets, you'll just have 5 different deals, unless you've got 2 deals with the same company, in which case they're more likely to be similar. But the nature of the deal tends to evolve in the negotiation and can be very different in terms of milestones or upfronts or even more creative deals that may result from the negotiation process.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Rob. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all three of you today for concluding the series. So yes, this webinar was the last in the series, so concludes the 2024 webinar series. And I'd like to just take the opportunity to thank all of the speakers and all of their organisations for the time and the expertise that they've given for this. And thanks also to everyone online who's been very engaged and kept coming forward with questions and even some quite nice positive comments in there as well. Thank you. So if you have missed any of the webinars in the series, the recordings will be available on the MDC website. Also look out for the written guides that are going to follow on after this. If you'd like to follow up on any questions that you have, you can contact us at MDC, and I've just put the contact information up for you there. But for now, thanks to all of the speakers again, thanks to the speakers today, and we'll see you next year in another Connect series. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.